So what we're going to cover this month is Star Wars Marvel UK. There is a lot of US stuff out there, but we're going to do that next month because I think it would be a bit cheeky to do 2 months at a time. So we are going to cover it. I do have with us Mr. Andy Preston and Mr. Spoons, who are aficionados, I will say, of Star Wars Weekly. Jason is just a collector who just buys everything. I've almost completed my entire run of all Star Wars UK weeklies and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, so I'm almost there. I just need to go to a farthest from to raid Dave's table of editions. I think I'm about 30 out or something, or maybe not even that. I'm not too far away. Just before we start, all I like to do is talk a little bit about comics. Now, we can have an excuse and actually talk about Star Wars comics as a kid. I think we might have mentioned it before at some stage, but I did collect Return of the Jedi Weekly when I was a kid. I remember a few Star Wars weeklies. I remember having a few, but I didn't collect them. I only had a couple then. I remember having an edition where it had Jackson the Rabbit in it, and that was enough. My brother, I think he ripped it up and said, "We're not having comics about rabbits." So that was the end of that, and I didn't really return to it until Return of the Jedi. I don't remember ever having Empire Strikes Back weeklies or anything like that. So, guys, what about you? I reckon you look a lot of friends. We'll come to Rich last as per normal, but Jason, you were probably too old for comics at that stage. Someone in your 30s wasn't really going to be allowed to have Star Wars comics. So I'll start with the Andy boys. Well, surely the Preston was into this because you'd have been the right age group. I was probably a bit too young for Star Wars Weekly, but I reckon you were into Star. You must have been to Star Wars Weekly. Don't tell me you weren't.
Yeah, guilty as charged, I'm afraid, Pete. Yeah, I came late to Star Wars, actually. I didn't discover Star Wars until I think it was probably summer of '79, so quite a bit later than the rest of the UK. But I inherited a collection of Star Wars weeklies from my cousin, so thank you to him. Read those absolutely avidly. I don't think I had issue 1, but I had all the other ones, so I read those over and over and over again. And then towards the end of the Star Wars run, so it must have been picking up soon after issue 100, I guess, I subscribed at home and carried on receiving it right through into probably the Star Wars monthlies. So that was after the Empire run. And I recall at the time the newsagent was having trouble getting them. They started to dry up. You might get one arrive every 2 or 3 months if you were lucky. And I think we, in the end, we got fed up and cancelled it. But love my comics. I've still got most of my collection upstairs. Most of the ones that I had as a kid. Read them over and over and over again. Absolutely loved them.
Did you ever send off competitions or anything, or interact when you started getting it?
I never wrote in. Now we'll come on. I think a bit later to people who wrote into the comics.
Oh yeah.
But So the occasional one might have had their mugshot printed. Never wrote in, but entered some of the competitions. Sure, I didn't win anything.
Yeah, no one ever did. I'm sure it was some sort of fad or some sort of like con. I'm not convinced anyone won anything.
No, enjoyed those. And then the other comic that we used to have at home was the Eagle, and we had that regularly for a while. I can remember they did. Oh God, what was it? They did a glamorous teacher feature. of all things. Now I wish they got that running now because obviously we'd be entering Rich. But glamorous teacher. Yes, my brother sent in a photo of his teacher. He was in primary school. He must have been about 8 at the time, and they actually picked it and she got printed. They drew a cartoon of her to print on the on this page. She got some flowers and a box of chocolates, and he got I can't remember actually what he got, but he won some prize or other, and he was delighted with that. So I never got anything published in the comic book. My brother did.
That's awesome. Was it only women, or did a few blokes make it in?
I don't know.
I mean, can you be a glamorous man teacher, or was it just a woman? I mean, that just sounds. I mean, like today you wouldn't get away with it, would you? But
well, you'll have to ask our resident teacher over there.
Yeah, well, he's not glamorous, is he? Unless he's wearing his dress for
all those short shorts.
Well, yeah, the short shorts always famous, right? So, Spoons, I reckon you were probably into another comic, but maybe not Star Wars.
You're bang on there, Pete. The sort of the Marvel comics. I certainly didn't have Star Wars comics. Almost certainly, I had Empire Strikes Back, sort of one or two. But mostly for Marvel, it was the traditional Marvel characters: Spider-Man, Daredevil, Fantastic Four, but only ones or twos. So, and the problem with Marvel comics is that they're these long-running stories. So I only ever sort of had middle sections of things, which I always found a bit frustrating. Actually, I always used to we used to get the American ones over here as well, didn't we? So the American adverts for X-ray specs and things like that used to really appeal to me in Marvel comics. But the ones I used to get regularly were the British comics, things like Whoopi and the Beano, and they would come through my door each week, which actually is frustrating thinking back to it, because if the other ones came through my door each week, I'd be able to follow those stories as they go along, whilst the Whoopi and Beano seem to be standalone comics. But they were the ones we'd get regularly, and they were the ones that I really liked at the time, were the sort of the more comic, as in funny ones, rather than the more serious ones. Although I'm sure Jason will like this, I did inherit my cousin's collection of 2000 AD. So I enjoyed those a bit, but never used to get those regularly. But it's only it's as a Star Wars collector that I've really discovered the Star Wars weeklies. He's not on the Star Wars Forum UK anymore, but a fella called Bollocks, named after a character from the Han Solo novels. I think Chris Chilton is his real name. He sold pretty much a full set of Star Wars ones a few years back, maybe a good chunk of them anyway, and I bought those off him. And over the years I've gradually added to them. I tend to buy runs. I got a great lot from the Sheffield Auction House, which had 1 to 100 in sort of pretty pristine condition, with all the free gifts of Return of the Jedi Weekly a couple of years ago. And so I just basically, on a Saturday morning, I'm lucky enough to have slightly older children. They go down and put the porridge on. I sit in bed, get brought a cup of tea, and read Star Wars Weekly. It's living the dream. So
that's paradise. It's paradise.
Over the past few years, I have read every issue of Star Wars Weekly, Empire Strikes Back Weekly, Empire Strikes Back Monthly, getting on back to Star Wars Monthly, and I'm about 60 issues into Return of the Jedi Weekly. And it's been, some of the stories are awful, some are great, some of the art's awful, some is great, but for that nostalgia kick, Andy's going to talk about the adverts and the letters, but that they are as interesting as the stories, if not more so. But I was going to run through the stories they have in them, but they're actually, by the end, they're pretty much a swizz. As I say, I'm on about episode 60 of Return of the Jedi Weekly. There are 3 pages of new Star Wars story. It's 3 pages. The rest is repeated stories from Star Wars Weekly, which is whatever, 6 years before, and stories that are entirely unrelated to Star Wars. And actually, they just stopped. They cartoonize modern films. So we've had The Spy Who Loved Me. No, not
Indiana Jones in there, isn't it, as well?
Indiana Jones, Time Bandits, Blade Runner, with the Olive Grove driving the car down.
For your eyes only.
For your eyes only, yeah. That's dramatized. Just sort of quite, they're a little bit older, maybe, some of the films, particularly Blade Runner, than some of the stories in there. But it's quite interesting just seeing the development of it. And there's a pattern at the end of each run. They essentially lose steam. So to start with, there's new long stories. By the time the film's becoming a distant memory and the new film's not out, they really are just going through the motions. And then the new film comes out and they're all shiny and new and want to get the readers back in, which I suspect is why I think I'm struggling to find the last 20 or so issues of Return of the Jedi Weekly. I think interest has pretty much waned by then. And that's why I can't find them. They seem to be fairly rare.
Quickly again, Jason, being a Scottish person, you were in the kind of like the height of the comics world, really. If you listen to our Michael Carroll interview, I mean, it seemed to be every comic was being produced in Scotland, in Britain, all the artists were coming from Scotland. 2000 AD, everyone was Scottish, Scottish.
Ooh, Willie here.
Well, yeah, Willie the Bruins. We had a fantastic episode. Yeah, the Bruins. Don't forget the Bruins. What was your staple diet of comics then? Did you get any Star Wars?
I started out with the Beano, and I had the Beano for a number of years. So I was Beano. I had an occasional Dandy, Weezer maybe, and then I moved on to 2000 AD, which was glorious. Got that for a number of years.
I'm off now. 2000 AD.
The thing that I'm really annoyed about is I must have had a couple of hundred of these, and they've gone. I don't know where they are, but when I've been rebuying the ones with Star Wars with it, I've been looking through and going, yeah, I had that as a kid, and I don't know where they went. So
they got binned, Jason. Like everyone else is like, I binned all mine. I remember my mom and dad going, what are these comics doing in the loft? Let's bin them.
I've got a few summer specials, and I've got a few annuals, and that's all I've got. So obviously I've rebought all the 2000 ADs that have got Star Wars kind of competitions and stuff in them. And then after that, I also had Warlord. You remember that?
Yes, Warlord, very, very, very
Warlord
famous.
And Victor annuals. I was very kind of big on those. And then when I got my ZX Spectrum, I had 1648 monthly, which was just basically a bit of cardboard with a tape on it.
Fantastic.
And I had lots of those. So, and of course, I had your Sinclair and your Spectrum and computer and video games. And then I was off into my home computer world at that point.
Well, as we all were. Now, I mean, that's one thing I used to love about like comics, especially when they had free gifts on. I love the free gift scenario. That's why on the fanzine we had Andy's badge on there. I love a free gift. I think it's the thing that makes children just go, I must have that item. It's all got a bit silly now with like plastic wrappers and stuff, but I remember getting Return of the Jedi. I've still got it. I've still got that. That's the only comic that survived. I've still got my Return of the Jedi weekly #1 with its badge. I've still got the badge, and that's it. That's the only one I kept.
I did have my Dennis the Menace membership wallet.
Yeah, I've still got that.
Dennis the Menace badge and Nasher badge, but I'm not quite sure whether
I've got my Desperate Dan badge as well, my cow pie badge, all that stuff. I think that the Beano stuff was my brother. But right, let's get to Richard finally, because this comics witchcraft pretty much, wasn't it? Pictures and things going on and wizards. I'm sure you were banned from having any comics because I know they weren't even distributed up north, Richard, were they? So you were probably still looking at reading newspapers, I guess.
I've told the story many times, Pete. If I came out of the comic shop, sorry, it wouldn't have been a comic shop. If I came out of a newspapers off license or something like that carrying a comic, I would be beaten to a pulp before I even got to the end of the street. I didn't see any kind of Star Wars weekly or anything like that at all. Only comics I remember were 2000 AD, which one of my mates was brave enough to buy, but he kept it very well hidden. And I would have got the Beano annuals at Christmas because that was acceptable to get as an annual. It wasn't acceptable to buy it in a shop and walk home with it, of course. And that's it. That is it. So
sorry. Why is that again? You just get beaten up because you'd be a bit soft having a comic.
Yeah, because you're different. That's the way it was in Northeast. If you didn't like football, you were beaten up. If you didn't wear the correct trainers, you were beaten up. If you didn't have the right jeans, you were beaten up. Billy Elliot, a very exaggerated story of one particular thing. But what's right about Billy Elliot is it happened. It just didn't have to be about dancing. It could have been about reading. It could have been about being interested in Transformers when everybody else was interested in Master Universe. You were beaten up because you liked Transformers and everybody else liked the other things. It was just like that all the time, constant.
Right, I'm going to quickly go over the issues because I think it's fascinating. So Star Wars Weekly went from 1 to 117. If anyone wants to fill in the dates, they can, but I'm not going to. The Empire Strikes Back Weekly then picked that up issue 118 and went through to issue 139. Then it became the Empire Strikes Back Monthly, and that went from 140 to 158. And then the Star Wars Monthly, and that went from 159 to 171. So we've kind of gone, okay, yeah, we got to Star Wars. Then, of course, Return of the Jedi came out. This one a bit mad. And this went from issue 1, so they returned to a new set of numbers, 1 to 155, which was pretty interesting. And I have to say, some of the issues, the first 100 issues are pretty cool. The covers are cool. They're from the movies. And then they went to kind of artwork covers, and they started featuring stories which weren't even Star Wars on the front. Power Pack and some robot thing nonsense. Sure, Andy can fill that in if he wants to. But so issue 1 to 155, and I have to say, I think I must have given up around about, I think I lost the will to live around about 130, 131, I think. I don't remember ever seeing the last few. I'd gone. I think I'd gone to football or computers, one of the two, and it did me in. So there was also 3 annuals, Star Wars annuals. There's a couple of Empire Strikes Back annuals and a couple of Return of the Jedi annuals, which we will cover in a bit more depth. And then a bunch of special issues, which are a little bit harder to find in good condition, but they can be done. I think there was 1, 2, 3. There was about 6 of those. Various seasonal specials, and I'll say they are quite collectible, but there's a lot there to collect. Actually, it's quite fun. It's actually quite fun to go through.
Missed a few as well, Pete.
Oh, have I?
You have.
What have I missed?
After issue 155, Return of the Jedi, the story did not stop there. It carried on in Spider-Man and Zoids. Remember the Zoids? Spider-Man and Zoids Weekly. There were only 8 of those with Return of the Jedi, or with Star Wars content. So it started off in issue 15.
What was the content, though? What was the content?
It was continuing the story, I think, that they'd had in the Return of the Jedi Weekly. Obviously, it wasn't popular enough to have its own comic at that stage, but I guess they'd still got a little bit of content that they needed to get out. So Spider-Man and Zoids took it up, and in fact, issue 15 of Spider-Man and Zoids, that has got a Star Wars cover. You got Vader on the front. For a completist, there's 8 issues there. There was an Ewoks Monthly. So there were 10 issues of Ewoks Monthly. And there was also some Ewoks content in the Spidey comic, issues 661 to 666. I'm told there's a number for you.
And Ewoks.
Spidey comic.
I hope he used his webbing to attach Ewoks to buildings, just to annoy them. I think that's what you'd have to do if you were Spider-Man with Ewoks.
Well, there was a craze in comics, wasn't there, for mashups, Batman versus Superman and things. So, Spider-Man versus Ewoks, I'd buy that one. The other one that we've not touched on is going way, 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 way back, right to the start. Now, obviously, Star Wars came out in America a lot earlier than it did in Britain, and America had their own comics. And there was a series of 6 issues, which were the first released in the States, doing the movie adaptation. And those made it across to Britain. 4 of those made it here with British issues. Mm-hmm. Actually, I say British issues. The interior was all the same, so it had American adverts, American copyright info, etc., etc. But the covers were printed differently for the UK market with pence. Curiously, of those 6 issues, you can get pence issues for numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5. Ooh. Nobody's ever found issue 1 as a pence issue, and nobody's ever found issue 6. No idea why not. That's a real mystery. Craig Stevens is really into all this sort of thing. He's written about it in his book, Star Wars Phenomenon in Britain. He doesn't know why. I've never found an explanation for that. So, if you're a completist, those issues were available in 1977 before the movie came out. You can get issues 2, 3, 4, and 5 of what was the first American release, but with pence covers. There you go.
Oh, nice. There was quite a gap, wasn't there, between obviously not those ones you're talking about, but the US run and the UK one. Didn't it start about a year later?
Oh, you've got me there. I don't know. I've got him. I don't know what the cover date was on the first one.
UK was February 8th, 1978.
Yes.
So not that long.
No, I'll be surprised if it's much.
6 weeks after the premiere, something like that.
So the US one was apparently April 12th, 1977. So there we go.
Oh, because it was the spoilers, yeah.
Should we get into... that was some good information, Andy. I like that. Shall we continue with Andy and some freebies, or should we go spoonsing and some storylines? Because some of the storylines are just brilliant. I've got... somehow, I don't know how, illegally obviously, I've got every single issue on a PDF. I do actually love reading through the stories. Now I love the whole Jackson Amazia Fox Train, or Amazia Fox Train. I think those adventures and that some of those gangs which have actually appeared in The Mandalorian, we did actually have one of the gangs appear actually in carbonite. They'd been carbonated.
Didn't know that. I mean, it's essentially that's a classic, it's Magnificent Seven style, isn't it? Or the Seven Samurai.
I think those swoop riders were in Solo, weren't they? Wasn't that Enfys Nest's gang, the Swoop Riders?
And that was Sergi X, the Arrogantus, who was leading those people. So it was in the gang. It was a Mazer of the Black Hole Gang. Is that what you're thinking
Fox
of?
Train. That's a Mazer Fox Train. Yes.
Yeah, Hedgie, who was like a giant porcupine, and Jim Starkiller, and he's quite key because he pops up another time. He's got his robot FE9Q. Known as FE. FE doesn't make it, but there's a character called Valance who's a bounty hunter with a kind of with a secret because he's a cyborg and he hates robots. He's looking for Luke Skywalker because he likes droids. I mean, it's a pretty ridiculous concept, really, if you think about it. There's somebody that likes droids, so he's traveling the universe trying to find him and kill him. So he thinks the Star Killer Kid is Luke Skywalker. So these sort of interwoven stories run through all the issues actually, and then they start repeating these stories in Return of the Jedi weekly, which is a bit of a con, but then they build on some of these characters. They actually start with the novelization or the comicization of the Star Wars story, and that's good because you get all the extra bits that were cut out of the film. So you get the story with Biggs, Wormy and Cammy, which interestingly, if you go to the Star Wars Annual #1, which is 1978 as well, they're both illustrated by Howard Chaykin, and same characters doing the tones, Howard Bender's doing the tones, but the stories are different. So the Star Wars Annual almost seems an abridged version of this. If you get the comics, you get a fuller story. So they sort of spin out that story over a few issues, and then you have the sort of the filler to make it a full comic around sort of 20 odd pages. So Tales of the Galaxy it starts off being the extra story in there, which is okay kind of sci-fi stories. There's one really good one that I enjoyed. It's called Fighting Machine 1. And he's essentially RoboCop, but a soldier, and he's like this robot that can think, and there's a little bit of moral story in there. Only runs for 2 issues, but that's quite a good one. But the sort of interesting sort of sci-fi concept. It feels a little bit dated, if anything. This is a problem I have. There's a bit too much sword and sorcery in it. And so some of they get a bit sci-fi. So there's another Tale of the Galaxy story is this Sword in the Star. And one of the things about Star Wars Weekly in the UK that differs from America is in black and white. But then they bring in Star-Lord, who we all know now from Guardians of the Galaxy. Then he was in Tales of the Galaxy, and he was just another character in there. But they're good stories. But then they start bringing in they've got fewer pages devoted to Star Wars, so let's chuck in an extra non-Star Wars story. And Tales of the Watcher comes in, and they are proper 1950 style sci-fi, rockets going to Mars and being strange people there. It feels so old-fashioned compared to Star Wars, even in the 70s. And some of the stories are quite nice, but they're a bit hit and miss. The Watcher appears in them all. He's kind of this sort of like alien godlike person that sort of comments on what's going on.
He's quite a big character though within the Marvel universe. I mean, that leads up to Thanos and all that sort of stuff. I mean, the Watchers are quite a big deal, and it's a bit like Guardians of the Galaxy, really. I mean, I remember reading that in Star Wars, and then I didn't really hear it after that. I didn't even pay any attention to it. Then it's suddenly a film. It's like, oh, okay, but that runs for ages, and it's not the best either, to be honest with you.
No, and you get Micronauts in there, which is interesting. Yeah, selling toys, but again, the pictures are really busy. And then Guardians, so we've got Tales of the Galaxy, and then Guardians of the Galaxy comes in and replaces Micronauts, but different. I mean, again, I'm no aficionado on these, but they're different characters to the ones that we now know from the films. The best running story in all those early Star Wars one is Deathlock 91. Do you know about him? And he takes the fighting machine to another level. So this is a guy, a soldier that's died, and they take his body or his brain and put it in a sort of a robot cyborg body, and he meets his old wife. It is just like sort of RoboCop in a way. So he's got these flashbacks, but he's just a killing machine, and it's just him page after page killing loads of people. And I thought that was brilliant. As a kid, I would have absolutely loved that. But going back to the actual Star Wars story, so yeah, we talked about Jackson, the giant green rabbit, but then because it's in black and white, I don't think he comes across as badly in Star Wars Weekly in the UK, because you don't know he's green. I think they refer to his colour.
I think it was the fact it was a rabbit.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd had all the aliens, like Walrus Man and all those sort of things, but when it was a rabbit, I mean, it was just, oh dear, rabbit. I remember it at school. People talking about it, like, oh, Star Wars got rabbits in it now. And these things, they do spread, and it wasn't. Just going back to Guardians of the Galaxy very, very, very briefly. There's so many members of Guardians of the Galaxy, or there have been. All sorts of people have become a member of Guardians of the Galaxy. So, I mean, it started off at one. I mean, I've got like a compendium of Guardians of the Galaxy characters, and you're thinking, they were in Guardians of the Galaxy? The art I always remember in those early editions is the art by the Italian guy Carmine Infantino, where it's really kind of square-jawed and very, really clear-lined art. And I think some of that is, I think a lot of it featured in the episodes of what was known as The Wheel.
I really don't like his art, and I've just read Stan Lee's biography. Have you read that? The Marvelous Life?
No.
And talks about Carmine Infantino in there. He's kind of phoning it in a bit towards the end.
Oh.
His drawing, I mean, the Stormtroopers and Darth Vader just don't look anything like
I
them.
love the style. I think it says 1970s to me. It's almost like an old-fashioned kind of Dirty Harry movie almost. It's just the angular kind of artwork. I just love it. I just love the artwork. I think I talked with Mark Carroll from 2000 AD about some of the artists I love, like Bernard Denelli. It looked like he was drawing action figures, and that as a kid that appealed to me. But I don't know what it is. Yes, it is not accurate, but I just love the style. The way he draws Princess Leia is just, I think it's just brilliant. I love his art. I could eat his artwork all day. I think it's just excellent. But I understand that some people just look at it and go, "What?"
Yeah, to me, it's like he's never seen Star Wars. He doesn't know who those characters are. He doesn't want to be. I mean, actually, it's interesting that I thought that before I read Stan Lee's biography, and then reading that, he's old by the time he's doing this. He's a 30s and 40s cartoonist. Yeah. So by the 70s, he's very much at the end of his career. And to me, it's just, I've got this crappy job drawing space robots. I'm not gonna try. But it's interesting that you are an artist. It's interesting that you see that in it, because to me it's too far removed from what they're meant to be. For me, it actually detracts from the stories, which is a shame, because, as you say, the Wheel story is a brilliant one. So it's, again, long-running character, Baron Tagg, hasn't he been? He's blinded in a lightsaber battle with Darth Vader, so he's out for revenge against him, and it's all it's kind of a bit weird. Luke sort of mind melds with Vader and goes in a coma. They all end up in this sort of giant gambling place where there's no rules. It's like a safe haven, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the Tagg family has kind of like been a thing now. They brought it back in some of the new Star Wars comics. I mean, that Bounty Hunter Valance, he's in the new Bounty Hunter series.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so they brought it back in like a special, which was like a celebration edition, and then they thought, look, he's just a great character. This kind of like robotic kind of thing. He's got various implants and stuff, and he is back. He's back, and it's a cracking story so far. I've been reading it, but again, maybe not everyone's cup of tea. But they decided finally that these stories are worth bringing in, and of course, if they're in the new comics, that means they are now canon.
Well, that's brilliant, because I really like these characters, and that really pleases me. Tagg's also on a giant killer weapon hidden in a kind of maelstrom around Yavin. On Yavin, they can't understand why their ships keep being destroyed by TIE fighters. They're too far out. They're not. They haven't got a hyperspace function. How are they hyperdrive? How are they doing this? And it's Tagg on this big spaceship hidden in this sort of this void. And Luke uses the Force to they steal a TIE fighter, and then he has to fly into this void to destroy the spaceship. And that's a really good one, because it's sort of adding to the stories that we already know, because all the Tagg and the Valance, I do like those, but they're quite far removed from the films. Whilst this one, with this big base just outside Yavin could be kind of like a cut scene just after or like an extra film between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. In issue 64, definitely worth having a look at this one, because Jabba the Hutt, and actually it's a frustrating thing, throughout all Star Wars Weekly, Empire Strikes Back Weekly, Return of the Jedi Weekly, they can't spell Jabba the Hutt right. He's only ever got one T, which, as ever to do a lot of editing in my job, that really drives me mad. That no one, this is not how it's spelled. But this Jabba that appears in issue 64 isn't the human character that's cut out from Star Wars. It isn't the slug-like creature that appears in Return of the Jedi. It's essentially a fish monkey. It's this really strange-looking creature. And it's nice stories, and that's Carmen Infantino he's drawing these ones as well, and not very bright, but it's almost like I'm not even gonna. Who is this Jabba? I'll just make him a fish monkey, because it kind of looks like someone I might have drawn in horror weeklies back in the day.
I thought that Jabba appeared early in the Star Wars one. They actually had him in the original Star Wars run. They actually had him as this. He looked more like kind of a Walrus Man kind of nonsense. I thought he was in there early on.
He might well be actually, thinking about it, Pete. But he is a fish. But he's Fish Monkey, I call him.
Okay, it's Fish Monkey. But he's definitely in that original run where again they must have had the script. They must have had what that scene was cut out, and they don't draw him as a human. They draw it as a really rubbish looking alien.
Didn't they just pick one of the background characters from the cantina?
I think so. Yeah. I think it's just rubbish.
Yeah, I think he's floating about in the cantina, and they thought, we'll pick that alien. That could be Jabba. Is it Mosep Binid or something like that?
Yeah, that's it.
For us toy lovers, the 70s, the issues there. So 74, Luke heads back to Tatooine. That's a nice story. But key in there is issue 78. You see the Imperial troop transport, which obviously doesn't appear in the films, but it's such a fantastic toy. I think it's even on the front. Is it front cover of 79? It's it's nice seeing that in the story. And Vader and Luke, that leads on to Vader and Luke meeting. But Luke doesn't have the battle with him. It's tag again, so he really does feature a lot of these.
The tags are annoying.
And then we sort of get on to Empire Strikes Back Weekly, which I think that it builds up a bit of steam there. So start off with the Empire Strikes Back story, and I think we have the cut scenes with which one of my favourite ones of C-3PO opening the door with all the Wampers in, so that it takes the sign off the door, doesn't he, so that the stormtroopers go into the Wampa hold. So that's nice seeing Empire Strikes Back there. I don't think the stories are as good in Empire Strikes Back as they are in Star Wars Weekly. Leia going for an ambassadorial mission to a planet with no weapons, which means that we get to have Vader and meet our heroes again, because it's the issues these modern cartoons have, isn't it? You can't have the main baddie meeting the goodies every week, because it sort of undermines their power if they get defeated or outwitted every week, so they can't appear very often. But it is nice seeing the main baddie with the goodies in those episodes. There's a much better story with Luke and a probe droid, issue 140. It's quite a spin on stuff that we already know. So these are familiar. This isn't creating new characters. This is stuff we know from the films, which I think now, and probably as a kid, I'd like much better. The Watcher's still going on, but then we get Kill Raven, which is a hero of the galaxy, and he comes in, and that goes on and on a bit. It's a bit of sword and sorcery, and the Star Wars stories get shorter and shorter and shorter. So issue 150 is really a sign of things to come, and actually comes with an apology saying, "I'm sorry that the story we wanted to feature, the Pandora Effect, wasn't ready in time. So here is Jackson again."
And Yay, get Jackson in there.
Valance and Jackson again, but they do apologise. Presumably not too many people moaned, so they realised they could get away with that a bit more in the future. We get these these longer issues as well. So they go to the monthly, as Andy was saying, and they're more like a graphic novel. And again, this is a story that could easily fill in the gap after Empire Strikes Back. So the rebels need a new base after leaving Hoth. So they arrive at Arbra, and there's these Hoojibs who are actually even worse than Ewoks. It's cute.
The Hoojibs don't.
Cute creatures, but they read emotion, and they keep appearing. They're all the way through Empire Strikes Back, go into Return of the Jedi. But it's in a way, it's nice to see them. Killraven's still going on by this time, but they briefly get rid of the Watcher. The covers start getting really good. The covers do change. So the early Star Wars covers are very much sort of scenes from the stories depicted inside. You get the odd sort of photo cover for special editions. By the time of Empire Strikes Monthly, you get some really nice hand-drawn covers of characters that are just really good. For me, the side stories start getting better now. So Rom replaces Heroes of the Galaxy, and we talked about Action Man earlier. You can get an Action Man, a Rom, very expensive, but he's a great character. This space knight coming to Earth to save things. It still feels a little bit 50s, 60s. And then Indiana Jones comes in there. When I have to give health and safety talks at work, I actually use a picture from the Indiana Jones stories, because he's got this quote. He's okay. It's not they're follow-on stories, a lot of them as well. So they're not the films. And he's with this female character trying to cross a river of crocodiles, I think it is. And he says, archaeology is all about staying alive. So when I'm having to tell our clients and stuff about archaeology, that pops up there because it's a great quote. Luke becomes a bit of a pariah. He's with an apparent rebel who's actually an Imperial spy, and he's accused of killing her. So he's kind of shunned by, despite destroying the Death Star, they soon forget that. He's shunned by everyone and has to go off and clear his name. That's
he's cancelled. He's been cancelled. That's what's happened.
And then there's also this other recur. He gets in. He meets a couple of would-be. I suppose they're rogues, a bit like Han Solo, sort of male and female character. The female character, Dani, really likes Luke, so keeps on, she's really, really flirty with him, so she pops up in a bit. And then it all gets a little bit silly with the Stenaxes, these flying demons that look like they're something out of Flash Gordon. And they're quite a nice story, actually. It's a guy called Drebble, who's a little bit sort of human Jabba the Hutty, and Lando pretends to be him, and Bosk appears, and it all gets very convoluted. But these stories then just sort of dominate, actually, because that runs into that Drebble and Lando story runs from Empire Strikes Back into Return of the Jedi Weekly. So we go from monthly to weekly from June 22nd, 1983. We start off with the Return of the Jedi story again, but we're also the Drebble, Dani, and Lando. They're all in there in these shorter stories. So it's quite good at that stage. But as I said earlier, it starts getting really bad. So Crimson Jack, he's the one who steals Han's reward from the rebels after the Death Star is destroyed. Basically, Han escapes. He's captured by Crimson Jack. He takes his money, and then Han escapes him, and that story goes on for a bit as well. But then they repeat that in Return of the Jedi. So it's like they're thinking 6 years, kids will have grown out of this by now. We can repeat all this. No one's going to be that bothered. And it just gets less and less Star Wars. As I say, so by episode 60, there's 3 pages of new stories. It's absolutely rubbish.
I wonder what the distribution of this was. It must have been pretty big. I mean, when it was at its height, there must have been, I can remember you should buy various magazines or football comics and whatever, and they put the distribution numbers on there, and they were like 100,000 for each issue, and then they were whinging that it was always fallen below 100,000. How are we going to survive? So these must have been pretty big. Like, it must have been big numbers.
I suppose the days before every kid having a phone where they could watch whatever they wanted on there. I'd have no ideas. I'm gonna sort of finish.
Wrap it up, Andy. Wrap it up.
I will mention there's one story again that it is worth reading Return of the Jedi Weekly for, and that's in issue 26, and the episode's called Hoth Stuff. The rebels find a floating cruiser, the cigar-shaped ship.
The transporter.
Rebel transporter, thank you. Yes, mine's gone complete back. They find a floating one of those, and inside is this message from Wedge saying that he's basically, because he's been missing since Hoth, they don't know where he is. And it's a message essentially telling his story, how he's been stranded on Hoth with a character called Jansen, but I don't think their quality control was great, because he turns to Jason in some of the issues and then back to Jansen. But he's been stuck on Hoth with Jansen. Jansen's really injured, and then some bad guys arrive, and it's how he escapes. But they've got the MLC3s, a bit like the Imperial Troop Transport appearing in Star Wars Weekly. It's really nice seeing these kind of toys that were side toys. They didn't feature in the films, but we loved them as kids. So the MLC3s appear in this on Hoth, and you see them. And actually, Wedge gets one and drives around in it. So it's great. So that's a good one to sort of to end on. But
I'm now intrigued that Wedge is now linked with that vehicle. I'm gonna have to go and get. I've got a Wedge figure somewhere. I'm gonna go and put him in it.
And then it's really naff. So they get this sort of this holographic message from Wedge telling this story, and but where is he? Where is he? And suddenly, and again, a little bit of a parallel from The Last Jedi, a little bit like Princess Leia flying through space. Wedge then suddenly appears floating in space and knocks on their spaceship window to be allowed in, and everything's all right. He's okay, but poor Jansen didn't make it. But yeah,
there's plenty of moments where our heroes are floating in space, so it was never a shock to me seeing that. It was like there's a wonderful sort of like big image in one of the early comics where Han Solo is, again, it's a Carmen Infantino image. He is floating in space. I'm assuming I think it was the battle with Chewie in the Wheel episodes. I can't remember.
It was that one, yeah.
And it's a wonderful image of. I think I've got a feeling someone I gave it to somebody. I print it out and coloured it in, nicely, and gave it to someone because it's just a brilliant image of Han Solo. It's just floating in space. So, when you saw Leia doing it, it was like, oh yeah, well, I've seen it before. Yeah. Right, Andy, that is a hell of a roundup. That is a roundup and a half. That's 2 roundups in one roundup, or maybe 5. Right, shall we talk about free gifts and collectible items, I guess. Other Andy, this is your kind of field. So we've had the comprehensive guide to every single comic, and now we've got the comprehensive guide to all the things you can collect. So let's test Jason's will on eBay.
Yeah, funny thing is that there weren't actually all that many giveaways. When you compare it with comics today, everything comes bagged with about 5 or 6 different free gifts on the front. I mean, my kids buy the odd comic, and giveaways are just ridiculous. But back in the day, there weren't actually that many free gifts. I mean, certainly in the initial Star Wars range, issues 1 and 2 came with a free, not an X-Wing fighter, but an X-Fighter, which was, you could pop out of card that it came on. So it was a rectangular piece of card. You pop out the pieces, put your X-Fighter together. Issue 2 came with a pop out and assemble TIE Fighter. And then in issue 3, in the center pages, there was a Death Star surface on which you could move your fighters around. So some quite nice giveaways, actually, with the first 2 or 3 issues. And those are quite collectible now. After that, there wasn't an awful lot. There were posters. I mean, sometimes you'd get a color poster in the center pages, or a black and white poster. Sometimes stills from the film, sometimes Marvel artwork. But there wasn't really another giveaway until the first issue of Empire Strikes Back, and that's the one that had the Dairy Lee transfers inside, with a little rub down scene inside that you could rub your transfers on. Going forward, now again, not an awful lot. There were a few more bits and pieces that came out with the Jedi run. I think you mentioned issue 1 of Jedi came with a free badge. And then the one that I love is issue 9 of Return of the Jedi, which came not with a free badge, but with a free Baghdie.
Yes.
On the top of the issue, in great big capital letters, it says free. It's supposed to say free badge, but they got the D and the G the wrong way around, so it says free BAGDE. And the funny thing is, there's obviously a space on the left-hand side of the comic where the badge was supposed to be affixed with sellotape. But in order to disguise this horrendous mistake in the spelling and shoot the proofreader, they affixed the badge over the spelling mistake. So, I do like that one. Going forward through the Jedi line, there were a few other giveaways, against some posters. There were some stickers. There were some transfers from the Thomas Salter Ewoks range. You got some cut out and make models. There was a star chart giveaway, so you could look up the star systems in the night sky. I think there was something like a card frisbee. So a few bits and pieces, nothing spectacular. I don't think they ever really topped the free X-Fighter and TIE Fighter in issue 1 and 2.
I remember getting, I can't remember it was with Return of the Jedi #1, or it was a bit later on, but there was like a little pamphlet. It's like a Cyril, the guy you write into. It was like a free pamphlet. I've still got it somewhere. I don't know why I kept it and threw away the comics. It's complete garbage. But it's just like just a little guide to various Star Wars things. But yeah, I mean, I have to find out what issue it was with. But yeah, that was a rather odd little free gift. I'm sure there was free gift on the front. It was like, oh, is that it? A pamphlet, several pages stapled like. It was like a little mini guide to something.
It's one of the early Return of the Jedi weekly ones, that one, yeah. Pete. Yeah, it just sort of runs through characters and things. It's pretty cheap. Yeah. They had a star chart as well, didn't they? Which is kind of just what can we think of that's a bit sci-fi. Okay, here's the constellations. They like Star Wars. They must like stars. That's the logic.
Yeah,
that's the logic there.
Yeah, they were a bit mean with the free gifts. I remember my fate as a kid. I don't know why I remember this, but I just do. I think for a few issues, I was madly into Incredible Hulk, Spider-Man, and Fantastic Four and Wonder Woman. But I used to get a Fantastic Four comic. It must have been a British one, and it came with a little cutout, a little thing on the front where it was basically a little bit of cardboard, and you could fold it and make the Fantastic Four vehicle that they used to drive around in, which I've no recollection of ever seeing in a comic, but they did. And it was brilliant. It was the best free gift I ever had. And I remember playing with that until the thing got destroyed in the bath or somewhere. And it was brilliant. And that's sort of free gifts. You should have more free gifts. But like I said, these days, comics are just full of free gifts, and it's just ruined that element of wonderment. So Andy, continue. Let's have what else is out there? What else is collectible around these Star Wars Marvel comics?
Yeah, well, I don't know about collectible, but one of the features that I really enjoy, particularly now as a collector and looking back, is the adverts. Every issue's got adverts in. Obviously, that's how they help finance the comic. Your adverts really fall into two categories. First of all, you got the adverts for other Star Wars stuff, and then you got the more general adverts. Star Wars stuff, pretty much anything you could collect, there was probably an advert or a mention of it somewhere in the Star Wars range. You've got obviously the Palitoy range. You've got KP Outer Spaces with the free Star Wars kite offer. You've got Clero, Letraset, Helix. You've got adverts for badges and key rings and T-shirts and watches, Super 8 home movies. Marvel obviously plugging their stuff, so the special edition compendium that was out. Spoons, I think you spotted one, didn't you, that you wanted to mention in particular?
This one's for the Force Beam, which was the unlicensed lightsaber that you could get in the UK. And there's quite a nice image, hand-drawn, Luke and Leia with the Force Beam on the back of one of the early issues of Star Wars Weekly. And, it's not a brilliant drawing, but it's quite nice. But then you get to issue 36, and it's the same toy, but the advert's changed to quite possibly the worst drawing I've ever seen in my life. We wonder if it's the child or untalented friend of someone working at the comic. It's just truly, truly awful. I've never seen anything like it as a sort of an advert. And Andy, you had a theory on that one, didn't you?
Well, I think the first advert was so good. As you say, it's representations of Luke and Leia both carrying these Force beams. You got the Star Wars logo, Starfield in the background, X-Wing fighters, Death Star. It's all there. Of course, the Force beam was a bootleg product. It was unlicensed. And I think somebody either at Marvel or at Lucasfilm looked at this advert and thought, oi, no, we're not having that. Cease and desist. My theory is that they'd blown all their advertising budget on this first bit of artwork. And then this cease and desist letter turns up and, help, crikey, what we're going to do? Who can we get that can draw an advert? Here, you, Office Junior, your job, you got 30 minutes to do it, get on with it. And that's what they ran with. So, I think it's a response to what must have been a rather nasty letter from a lawyer saying you can't run that advert again because you're breaching every copyright that we've got.
I think it's almost like a dirty protest. Okay, we won't run it. No one will ever be interested in Star Wars again. I mean, who's it even meant to be?
Absolutely no idea. Answers on the back of a postcard. We'll put it up on the on the Facebook page and on the social media. So be interested to get some feedback on that one.
Right, I've got a question, a moral question, and maybe Richard and Jason could come in on this as well. People are collecting some of these issues. I think Jason's a culprit here, and cutting out the adverts and then dissolving and distributing the rest of the comic into the bin. Now, if I find a comic which has an advert cut out, and I have had a few in bundles, I take the rest of the comic and I cover my comic boxes in these, so they don't go to waste at least. But at some stage, are we going to have a problem? I know there's millions of these out there, but at some stage, we may need to put a stop to people cutting out adverts from magazines. I mean, surely a good old photocopy will do the job, and then you can keep the comic. I mean, am I just being a bit overprotective, or are we going to, get to a point where issue, 26 of Star Wars Weekly is going to have, so many people have cut out a Palitoy advert from it? Because all these lunatic Palitoy collectors out there, you know who you are, have taken the adverts out. I mean, is it? Am I overly concerned?
I think you're not, Pete. I think this is the equivalent of essentially U-grading, isn't it? It's just the value of these things is a couple of pounds, and no one cares. And you talked about distribution earlier, didn't you? Sort of hundreds of thousands potentially of these. So there's a lot out there, although a lot will have been binned. I don't see any need to do it. And actually, the adverts go for more money than the comic, which
exactly
absolutely crazy. But people just like making money, don't they? I mean, if you want the advert, just fold the comic over, put it in a frame with the advert sticking out the front. There's no need to cut it out, and someone else further down the line would appreciate the comic whole.
Jason, are you guilty of this?
No, I bought most of the adverts that I've got on the wall. I bought them as single sheets for more than the cost of the comics before I realised you could get them in. You could get a whole comic for cheaper, and the ones where there was a few missing. I've done the thing where I've folded it back and put it in into a kind of clear plastic sleeve so I can frame it up. Or I think there's a couple where I've opened the staples and I've removed the page and kept the whole thing intact and put it in the frame. But I've not actually cut one of the comics off. So
that's good to hear. We're not destroying anything. Richard, do you even collect the comics? I doubt if you would do, but there we go.
I don't in the original format, but I've got most of them in the Dark Horse comic reprints.
Okay.
I'm very, very precious about books and comics and things. I would only go down the vintage line if they were absolutely pristine, hadn't been read before. I don't like the idea of secondhand books and comics, never have.
But yeah, I'd like to hear other people's opinions out there, actually. If you are a person who cuts comics, is it a habit we need to stop? I'd like people's opinions on that, actually, because I think I probably have done it in the past, but only if the comic has been destroyed, like the cover's ruined, and no one's ever going to want that comic. And I said I will redistribute those things. I mean, I've got a couple of scrapbooks I put various panels in of the Star Wars stuff, and then bin the rest. Or if there's an advert in it, I will use it, but only if the comic has been damaged or destroyed. But maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't do it.
There were basically a couple of annuals for each movie, I think, weren't there? So Star Wars, there was the first annual, which was the movie adaptation. There was a second Star Wars annual, which had I think it was the Waterworld series of stories, weren't there? That one's notable for having a preview of The Empire Strikes Back. I think it might have been that annual where I got my first taste of Empire. A couple of behind-the-scenes shots and a little bit of information. There was then the Empire Strikes Back movie adaptation. There was another Empire annual, I'm thinking, though, with a Star Wars cover. Is that right?
There was
Star Wars badged.
I think there was 3 Star Wars annuals, but one came out after Empire, but just had the word Star Wars on it, and that was one with Luke Skywalker and kind of in his Bespin fatigues.
That's the one.
Pointing a gun. So yeah, I think that was it says Star Wars, but it was Empire Strikes Back.
There was then the Return of the Jedi movie adaptation. There was another Return of the Jedi album. There was a curious one, which was a British Home Stores exclusive, and that one had the Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi movie adaptations, but no Star Wars. Odd that they chose those two to print. Last but not least, there was a Star Wars annual featuring Ewoks, and then there was an Ewoks annual just for those furry little critters. And I think that's your lot, isn't it?
Right, so have we covered it all? Is that everything? Or there must be something. There must be like a display of something somewhere, or...
There's the paperback. Sure, I've got the the Return of the Jedi comic book, but it's like the small paperback.
The Piccolo one.
Yes, so they're like the novels of the films, aren't they? But there's one of those. They do the comic ones. Are they Marvel?
They are Marvel, yeah. And there was one of those for each of the 3 movies as well. So it's another way of getting the comic strip adaptation, basically.
And are Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back quite rare? Because I only ever see the Return of the Jedi one around.
I've got the Empire one in not a great condition. I think it was one of my pickups. I think last month someone gave them to me and said, "Look, just have these." I've got Return of the Jedi one, but I've never seen the Star Wars one.
Yeah, the Star Wars one is harder to find because I think the big annual was so popular. But there is a paperback edition as well, as you say, in the smaller novel format.
I'll have to find that one then. That's annoying.
Well, I think we need to touch just very quickly on letters pages.
Yes.
Fan interaction.
Why is that? Why are you going to talk about that?
Well, again, there's such a wealth of information in there. It's just lovely just seeing what people have written in. Letters pages started off with cosmic correspondence, and then I think somebody mentioned Cyril, the rather annoying robot. Got a bit too big for his boots. He even got his own comic strip, didn't he? Later on in I think in the Return of the Jedi issues.
An image of him as well, which in roller skates. I think he had roller skates on. It was
awful. Yes.
Yes, he was the editor droid, wasn't he?
Yes.
Anyway, enough about Cyril. Yeah, so on the letters page, you get all sorts of things. You get, obviously, feedback on the comics, what people had liked and what they didn't like, people talking about their collections, and it's interesting to see what people had picked up at different times. It's a good indication as to what was being released, because you'll see people talking about the new action figures that they've got, and obviously in the early days, the early comics, the action figures weren't out, so people were talking about LPs and novels and things like that. You'd get people sending in drawings, ranging from the very good, very artistic to frankly downright rubbish. Interesting interpretations. One of the early issues, somebody's drawn a tri-fighter, as they call it, which was basically the TIE fighter, but with 3 wings coming off the central sphere rather than 2. And
that exists.
It does.
Exists. Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean that actually came into canon much later on, so that was interesting to see that in one of the early ones.
Might have been stolen.
I'm sure there were at least a couple of letters from irate fathers saying, "I hate you. Please stop publishing this comic because my son is getting far too interested in these movies and spending far too much of my money on all the tat." Those quite interesting. And then you get people writing in as if they were a stormtrooper or as if they were Han Solo. There was one from Princess Leia that I noticed having a look through earlier on today. She wrote in to say, if Darth Vader hurts or scares you, he's going to get a telling off from me next time I see him. So that must have reassured a lot of kids reading the comic.
And there's also letters from people complaining about people writing in pretending to be Boba Fett and stuff, so sort of saying they're just a bunch of kids. And then Cyril sort of gives a pretty short reply to that, saying, yeah, but it's good fun. So it's interesting that you people reading this comic getting annoyed by these letters.
The other celebrity letter writer that I spotted, which is another interesting one, was Doctor Who. Who would have thought he would write into Star Wars Weekly, but he did. He talked about, apparently he encountered Obi-Wan Kenobi in a cantina on Slogler 5, and they shared a bottle of Hutlerian brandy. Strong stuff, says the Doctor. So, there you go. Days before the internet, before conventions really got going, this was the only way really for fans to communicate. So there were a lot of debates from the level of has Chewbacca got fleas through to when The Empire Strikes Back came out, is Darth Vader Luke's father? Who is the other that Yoda mentioned? Yes. And there were some quite lengthy debates going on.
Boba Fett was apparently the other. People were obsessed with it. I remember people going on about, the other is Boba Fett. It's Boba Fett. And you go, okay, that's a bit random.
They're also really good for spoilers. Some of the earliest letters, so in Star Wars Weekly, there's a great one where someone's saying he's a member of the Star Wars fan club. Interestingly, he's called Alan Hamill. I wonder if he is related to Mark Hamill. But he says there will be at least 2 more films. First starts filming in January 1979 for release May the 1st, 1980. 2 new locations, Jungle Planet and Ice Planet. R2-D2 will be on skis.
Why didn't that happen?
And one of my other favourite ones is David Prowse has got this reputation for giving away all the storylines. But there's someone that writes into Star Wars Weekly. On Sunday, 15th of October, I went with my mum and dad to see the Star Wars cross-country team chase at Evendon Hall. I met David Prowse, Darth Vader, and he gave me a Green Cross Code badge. Ooh. Also met Peter Mayhew, Chewbacca, and Carrie Fisher. Saw R2-D2 and lots of stormtroopers. We had a great day and enjoyed meeting the stars. We're all very friendly, especially Dave Prowse, who told us that the next Star Wars film would not be ready until May 1980. It's a long time to wait, but it'll be worth it. So there's no sort of key facts in there, but there's this sort of sign that Dave Prowse is already the big mouth. If you want to know anything about the future films, he's the person to speak to.
Was that event with the horses and stuff that we talked about?
I think it was, yes. Evendon Hall. So that's when's that? So that's 1970. So 15th of October, 1978. This is Simon Dabbin from Birstall, West Yorks.
We covered that story, didn't we? The helmet came up being sold, but yeah.
Here's another one. This is Jonathan Johnson from New Malden, Surrey.
Oh.
The letter again, October 1978. The letter, but assume it's a bit earlier. Dear Star Wars Weekly, yesterday I saw Dave Prowse, Darth Vader, opening of Fate. He gave away important info about the film and films to come. It's all a bit complicated, but he said, as it turned out that Star Wars 1 was meant to be number 4, 1, 2, and 3 are going to be in 2 or 3. He couldn't be sure that Darth Vader is seen in person and how he came to be wearing his suit. In either 6 or 7, Darth gets unmasked and you see what lurks behind it, and he eventually dies. He said that George Lucas and Gary Kurtz were hoping that there would be 11 sequels, and also George hopes that soon in Britain you'll be able to see 24 hours of Star Wars. Filming for the next Star Wars starts in February 1979, so it looks like the Force will be us for a long while. I hope this data will come in useful for the rebels. You know, he got everything in there.
Oh my word! He was really giving it away, wasn't he? Right, yeah. Andy, you got some swap shops for us, haven't you?
Yeah, that's another thing that they did. This started off in Return of the Jedi Weekly, and they had a swap shop page, Star Swaps they called it. So again, interesting to see what people had and what they were after at the time. And I thought it might be interesting to give you guys a sort of deal or no deal. If I say to you what somebody was wanting from you and what they're prepared to swap for it, would you take the deal or would it be no deal? So Pete, as you're there, I'll start with you. Here's the first one. So this is what they want. Wanted a droid factory, Sandcrawler, turret probot, and Imperial attack base, for which they are prepared to swap a Rancor, an AT-AT, and a Scout Walker. Deal or no deal, Pete? Are you swapping?
Well, now I wouldn't, but maybe then I might have, because I mean, getting AT-AT and a Rancor would be well up for that. But probably no.
Jason, here's your swap, Jason. So they want Leia Poncho, Paplu, 8D8 and the Emperor, for which they are prepared to offer you, Jason, a skiff and 2 figures. What do you reckon, deal or no deal?
I'm going to decline that, I think.
What?
A skiff? What are you
skiff, man. Skiff.
Well, it just says skiff. Now, that's where the catch might come in. It just says skiff. It doesn't specify whether that is the Tatooine skiff.
Oh, yeah.
Or the one-man sail skiff.
Oh, yeah, good point. It's in the UK as well.
I'm going to gamble and take the skiff, I think. See what turns up.
It's the UK, Jason. We didn't get the skiff here. It'll be the one-man sail skiff.
Yeah, it might still be a gamble worth taking there. Yeah. Rich, here's one for you. So they are offering you, Rich, a Snowspeeder or a TIE Fighter, and they want the Boba Fett and Darth Vader 12-inch dolls.
Oh, definitely.
Are you swapping?
Without a doubt. Yeah, take it.
Take it. Excellent. So you would give away 2 12-inch figures for a Snowspeeder or a TIE Fighter. Which one are you going to have?
It depends if it were the white one or if it was a battle damaged TIE Fighter. If it was the white one, I would take the white TIE Fighter. If not, the Snowspeeder.
There we go. Last but not least, Spoons, here's your deal. So this is what they want from you. They want a TIE Pilot action figure and a die-cast TIE Bomber. and they are willing to offer you Lobot and an Ugnaught. Are you gonna deal? Are you swapping spoons?
I wouldn't swap just the TIE Pilot for an Ugnaught and a Lobot.
They're complete.
Has he got his handbag? Has the Ugnaught got his handbag?
Yeah, mint complete. I don't know about graded. I'm not tempting you, am I?
They're having a laugh, aren't they? No. Definite no.
No deal on the TIE Bomber. That's a few of the quite genuine swaps that were being offered up in the pages of Return of the Jedi Weekly. The other thing I was going to mention, just to round off, was the Pen Pals section, which also appeared around about the time of Return of the Jedi. Sign of a different era. They are putting up people who want pen pals. They're giving their name, they're giving their age, they're giving their full address in the pages of the comic here. And saying, please write to these kids. And just on the page I've got here, what's the youngest? 7 years old. Goodness me. I don't think people would be very happy about that these days. But again, just picking a few out, we've got. I better not give full details, but I've got Jason is a Star Wars fanatic and would like a Star Wars pen pal. Jason lives in. I won't give the address again. Jason lives in Bristol. He's 13 years old and collects anything to do with Star Wars. Ooh. He likes reading, science fiction films, drawing, and the occasional bout of tennis.
Yeah, I was almost sold, but then he said tennis. Sorry.
Yeah. It's no way you play tennis.
Suzanne lives in Dublin. She's 12 years old and would like a pen pal. Her hobbies are collecting fancy rubbers and pencils and all kinds of sport. She's also interested in dressmaking, reading, and the arts. God. We've got Nicholas, age 18. Now, what's somebody age 18 doing reading at Return of the Jedi Weekly? I don't know. He's from London. He would like a pen pal the same age. His hobbies are magic, clowning, juggling, playing the piano and the clarinet.
Clowning. Sorry, next.
Clowning.
He likes Scott Joplin music, science fiction, and fantasy films. There we go. Who would not want to write to Nicholas? And then the last one I found, you'll enjoy this one. This is Peter, age 14, from Leamington Spa. Interests include football, collecting Barbie dolls, and Star Wars. Looking for a girl pen pal with a slave Leia outfit. I wonder whether Peter got any replies.
I remember doing a pen pal. I remember having a pen pal with Wimbledon. I wrote in, and some lass wrote back, and she's really nice. I actually met her several years later. Became friends with her family. Actually, they were all Wimbledon fans, all mad. There was nothing in it, but it was just really nice. They actually took me to a Wimbledon game down south. It was really nice. But it's very funny. I also had a Wimbledon pen pal over in Finland, and became quite good mates with him over the years through the whole AFC Wimbledon thing. But yeah, I used to do the whole pen pal thing. I used to really enjoy it.
I did pen pals, but I got one letter, probably arranged through school. You did see like some French school somewhere, and you'd write them a letter, they write back, and then that was it. I never bothered again, but I can't remember anything about them. And you'd said earlier that no one ever wins prizes. It suddenly reminded me, used to get Crash and Sinclair User, and won a competition in Sinclair User. Won a copy of the 4th protocol for the ZX48.
Well, I was very good at winning local competitions. Obviously, I'm in one of the editions winning a competition.
Oh, yeah.
But I had a run. I think my mum was telling me I had a good run of things. I kept winning things in the local courier. That was one of them. And I won 2 or 3 other things. I won a Subutio set, which I don't think I ever played because it was just too hard to have someone with big fingers. But yeah, I won a really nice Subutio set. I sold it about a couple of years ago, actually, for silly cash. Because it was like I literally had never used it. It just sat there in the loft, doing nothing. But yeah, I did. I had a good run. It never happened again. It's a shame. Right, guys, I think that's an absolutely fantastic round. And we only just covered the UK Marvel world. So next month, we're doing the rest of the world. So if that was long, you wait to what's coming next month.
Hi there, I'm Mike Quinn. You'll know me as Nine Numb in the Star Wars saga. And you're listening to The Vintage Rebellion.